Coming to you live from Nairobi, Kenya. Welcome to Africa Focus, where we bring you news from across the continent right here on Switch TV Kenya. My name is Joel Church and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Start interacting with us on our social media platforms at Switch TV Kenya, at Joel Chacha M on Twitter, and as well on Facebook, Switch TV Kenya and Joel Chacha. Send in an SMS via 111 444 111. But first, here are stories making headlines. 30 security personnel killed by jihadist fighters in an ambush on the convoy of the regional governor in restive northeast Nigeria. A Central African Republic President Faustin Archange Touadera has announced he will run in the December election. Mali's interim president sworn in. Jihadist fighters linked to the Islamic State group killed 30 security personnel in an ambush on the convoy of the regional governor in restive northeast Nigeria. The insurgents opened fire with machine guns and rocket-propelled grenades as the convoy was passing through a village close to the headquarters of the Multinational Joint Task Force, which is a military coalition of troops from Nigeria, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon.
According to security sources, the number of deaths from the jihadist attack on the convoy of the regional governor in northeast Nigeria has risen to 30. The sources told the fatalities from the attack in receive Borno State had doubled since the convoy transporting Borno Governor Babagana Umar Zulum came under attack from the insurgents on Friday near the town of Bagana on the shores of Lake Chad. A second security source gave the same death toll of 30 from the assault and says militants seized 8 vehicles. Police later confirmed in a statement that the attack by suspected jihadists on the security convoy had killed 8 policemen and 3 government-backed militia members. The militant group has recently intensified attacks on the military and civilian targets in the region. In July, Zulum's convoy came on attack from Iswap outside Baga, forcing him to cancel his trip to the town. Last week, the group killed a Nigerian army commander along with 3 soldiers in an ambush near the town of Damboa. The decade-long insurgency in northeastern Nigeria has killed 36,000 people and forced over 2 million people from their homes. Most of the displaced have been housed in squalid camps where they depend on food handouts from international charities. Daniel Kariuki for African Focus.
Shifting gears now to politics, Mali's interim president Bainda has been sworn into office after months of putsch of vowing to hand over powers within 18 months on international accords and pursue the fight against jihadist insurgents. Described by former colleagues as principled NDA, he has stated that he will crack down on corruption, which is one of the main complaints against Keita's government, and stamp out abuses by Mali's armed forces against civilians.
Mali's interim president Bahndo was sworn into office on Friday after last month's putsch, vowing to hand over within 18 months, honor international accords and pursue the fight against jihadist insurgents. But his promises failed to shift post-coup sanctions by Mali's neighbors, which warned their clamp would remain in place until a civilian prime minister is named.
In the name of the truth of the ballot box, which must be the only norm in a democracy, I will fight uncompromisingly against the votes which come at a great cost.
Now, a 70-year-old retired colonel was named interim president by a committee appointed by a military junta that toppled the elected head of state, Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, on August 18th. Junta leader Colonel Assimi Goita was also sworn in as vice president of the interim government on Friday.
Dear countrymen, the transition that is beginning will not call into question any of Mali's international commitments, nor the agreements signed by the government.
The ceremony took place in a Bamako conference center filled with face mask wearing military officials, senior judges and foreign envoys. Mali's neighbors have watched the dramatic political upheaval in Bamako with worry, anxious to avoid the fragile country slipping into chaos. Swathes of the vast country also lie outside the government control due to a lethal jihadist insurgency that first emerged in 2012 and also inflamed ethnic tensions. Thousands of soldiers and civilians have died in the conflict to date, and hundreds of thousands have had to flee their homes. Nyakundi Kelvin, Africa Focus.
Meanwhile, Central African Republic President Faustin Archange Touadera has announced he will run in the December election in the country ravaged by more than 7 years of civil war. Touadera, who is 63 years old, was elected in February 2016 with 2/3 of the vote, but has since struggled to stem vicious intercommunal violence in the poor landlocked nation, where militia groups control 2/3 of the territory.
Violence remains entrenched in the Central African Republic despite a peace accord signed in February 2019 between the government and 14 armed groups, which often claim to defend the interests of specific communities or religions. In 2013, the Seleka, a rebel coalition drawn largely from the Muslim minority, toppled then-President Francois Bozize, plunging the CAR into a spiral of violence which has forced nearly a quarter of the country's 4.7 million people to flee their homes. Bozize, who has been back in the Central African Republic for a year, will be Touadera's main rival in the December 27th election if his candidacy is validated. Uncertainty lingers over whether the elections will be held in the planned time frame, as significant delays have emerged in the organization of the poll, including the registration of voters. Nyakundi Kelvin, Africa Focus.
Elsewhere, former Burkina Faso Prime Minister Isaac Zida, who is in exile in Canada since 2016, has been named by his party, the Patriotic Movement for Salvation, as candidate for the presidential election of November 22nd elections. Zida addressed activists and sympathizers by video conference, reiterating that his party is unflappable and unstoppable towards concurring the state on November 22nd in order to exercise its power with the people and for the people.
Voted young people, women and men, to go and conquer the state, thus exercising the power of the people. And we say to them that for Burkina Faso's cause, we are unflappable and we are unstoppable.
What hasn't been said? If he has nothing to be ashamed of, let him go home and we'll see. Now that he wants to go home and present himself, we want to humiliate him, Yakuba Isaac Zida said. He repeated and reiterated that he was ready to present himself before the military court, but he doesn't want humiliation. He's a Burkinabe. He's worthy. He's proud. He refuses to be humiliated.
Que notre président d'honneur soit radié de l'armée, soit.
The fact that our honorary president has been disbarred from the army, but that he has also been prosecuted and removed from the army ranks, is proof of political persistence. Why prosecute for desertion and insubordination a military figure who has become a civilian since he has been struck off the army ranks? Either you are a civilian or a military man. You cannot be a civilian and a military man at the same time.
On ne peut pas être civil et militaire.
Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, during a pre-recorded address to the United Nations General Assembly, emphasized that in spite of the steep resistance that comes with trying to shift the status quo in favor of social justice, the country will pursue its inevitable track of democratization.
I would also like to draw your attention to the fact that our largest national project today, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, built with our own local resources, contributes to the conservation of water resources. These water resources would otherwise have been lost to evaporation in downstream countries. I want to make it abundantly clear that we have no intention to harm these countries. What we are essentially doing is to meet our electricity demands from one of the cleanest sources of energy. We cannot afford to continue keeping more than 65 million of our people in the dark. We have 15. I want to assure that we are firm in our commitment to addressing the concerns of downstream countries and reaching a mutual beneficial outcome in the context of the ongoing African Union-led process. In spite of the stiff resistance that comes with trying to shift the status quo in favor of social justice will pursue Ethiopia's inevitable track for democratization. The World Food Programme has already warned that the number of food insecure people in our region is likely to increase due to the socio-economic impact of the pandemic. This, coupled with the massive outbreak of desert locusts and climate change-related extreme weather events in our region, threatens to wipe out the livelihoods of millions of our people.
Time to take a breather. Stay with us here on Africa Focus. Still to come. We bring you a special feature on the bag ban journey. Welcome back to Africa Focus. My name is Joel Church and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Moving on, Kenya has harsh penalties for those caught manufacturing, selling, importing or using single-use plastics, yet the country still struggles to reduce its waste. Notably, the public has changed the attitude towards their view on plastic bags and their usage in relation to the environment. Moreover, there has been visible cleanness in most towns that previously used to be dotted with plastic carrier bags hanging loosely on buildings and trees. 80% compliance with the plastic bag ban has been reported, or rather recorded. Our reporter Andrew Kero has been following on this story and filed a special feature, The Bag Ban Journey.
On 28th of August 2017, Professor Jude Wahungu, the former Minister for Environment and Forestry, declared a ban on single-use plastic bags in the country and introducing high penalties for defaulters, ranked the harshest in the world.
The reason we want to phase this out is, again, to provide a healthy environment. I want to repeat and to reiterate that plastic polythene bags are pollutants, they are toxics, and they affect our health negatively. That is the whole purpose.
The plastic bag ban led to a loss of jobs, years of investment, and some manufacturers closed their businesses and others relocated to other countries.
Kwenye hii business kama hii yangu, tuseme saa hii kama niko na mbaazi, nikiweka kwenye hiyo makaratasi nyepesi inakuanga nzuri kwa sababu customer wanasiona kwa mbali.
Hiyo karatasi ungepata kwa shilingi 30, lakini yenye imekuja hivi karibuni inauzwa kwa shilingi 120.
However, it has also brought new business opportunities.
Nafikiria kwa upande mwingine sisi kwetu imeleta savings. Kwa sababu paper bags zilikuwa risk kuraruka, but for this one ya saizi you can reuse it.
But we ask them to innovate because that is not the only line of production. They can innovate, they can bring biodegradable bags, they can make reusable bags. So we're asking the industries to innovate, ensure that you come up with the relevant material that can be used by the public.
A research sanctioned by NEMA in 2018 on prevalence of plastic bags in the ruminants of slaughtered livestock in Nairobi's abattoirs found out that more than 50% of livestock have ingested plastic bags. These animals suffer from various conditions such as depression, being weak, and bloating affecting milk and beef production. The researchers concluded that the ban on plastic bags should be upheld to safeguard livestock industry and environment. A prior research by NEMA and United Nations Environment Programme UNEP postulates that Kenyan supermarkets handed out 100 million plastic bags annually that ended up littering the environment before the ban. 3 years later, a report by the government says 80% of the population has stopped using plastic carrier bags. Over a decade of engagement with the relevant stakeholders, the Ministry of Environment and NEMA felt that it was the right time to effect the ban.
As a country, we've made very good progress in terms of implementation of the ban. If you look at our towns and cities, they are much cleaner now. And I want to thank NEMA officers. I think they've been doing very good job countrywide to ensure that they follow up on these plastic carrier bags.
With the ban, Kenya became one of the few countries to ban plastic bags globally, acting as a benchmark to most countries in the world, especially our East African neighbors.
Very gratifying. In fact, when we look back, before we come to the issue of total ban, we had lots of challenges. We had to engage a number of stakeholders. We had to bring people on board, enlist the support of the public to ensure that this is for their good and this is for the good of the environment.
Although the ban has largely been considered a success, some types of plastic bags have not disappeared entirely.
We enhance our enforcement, including working closely with the market managers and the county governments. As you are aware, recently we gazetted close to 100 county environmental inspectors.
A majority of supermarkets and shops are no longer handing out carrier bags. Small traders have been using small bags made of clear plastic, which the United Nations says could be smuggled into the country from our neighboring countries that are yet to ban the plastic bags.
Ikiwa iko hiyo plastic kuna manufaa mingi sana. Kwa hivyo mimi sitaki, kama mimi Mkenya singependa nione tena makaratasi inarudi tena Kenya.
According to the United Nations, plastic pollution is one of the most serious threats to the planet's health. Single-use plastics are polluting the majority of ecosystems from rainforests to the world's deepest ocean trench. When consumed by fish and livestock, plastic waste ends up in our food chain. Further statistics indicate that by 15th of September 2018, 88,500 tons of waste was collected. By 21st September 2019, 100,000 tons of waste was collected. Now, United Nations says that this year the number of tons of waste is expected to go high due to the rate of poor waste management strategies.
Ulikuwa unapata kuna mrundiko wa makaratasi mpaka zilikuwa juu ya miti, zingine zilikuwa zinaingia mpaka ndani ya duka zikipigwa na upepo.
How you handle your water, your wastewater, and how you handle waste, solid waste, you throw it out of the window. You throw it anyhow. Then it accumulates in the estate, it accumulates in the streets, and accumulates in illegal dump sites.
Back then, hii river yetu hii ilikuwa full of plastic bag. But hizi woven bag naweza sema hata zikitupwa kwa mto hazitachukua space kubwa sana kwa sababu hizi once zimekunywa maji zina shrink. Alafu ni rahisi kuzitoa.
The United Nations states that before the ban, tens of millions of plastic bags were handed out in supermarkets every year in Kenya, polluting the environment and clogging up the drainage systems, contributing to floods in major urban towns during rain seasons. By 2050, the United Nations estimates that there will be more plastics than fish in the ocean. But in Kenya, pressure is already mounting for various environmental agencies to reintroduce the banned plastics 3 years on. Will they bow to the pressure? Andrew Kero, Such TV in Nairobi.
Thank you so much, Andrew Kero, for highlighting the journey. And still on the same matter, but now focused in Senegal, the beach bordering the fish settlement about 30 kilometers south of the capital, Dakar, is now permanently choked with plastic waste and rotten fish carcasses. Residents tip out buckets of waste onto the beach for lack of disposal facilities. Local fishermen and industrial trawlers' tows refuse overboard, which washes back on the beach, according to Medza, whose real name is Medon Ndoye. For months, he and other local activists have been pushing to clean up the town.
Senegalese town fights losing battle against trash. Medza remembers the coastline of his native Senegalese town of Bagni as a place where he fished and played as a child before he became a festering rubbish dump. Wedged in by a motorway and industrial sites, Bagni typifies Senegal's jagged economic development as well as its seemingly endless struggle against pollution and trash.
It really can't go on like this because it's wrong and shameful.
The town borders one of the West Africa's largest cement factories and a power plant, and a mineral port is being built nearby. But its 60,000 inhabitants have seen little in the way of beneficial development. On August, after raising money online for wheelbarrows, bags and shovels, they spent 3 days clearing the beach.
This is the part that we cleaned up on the 15th and 16th of August. But this morning, I came back to check it out. But to my great surprise, it seems as if we didn't do anything.
Much of the coast of Senegal, a poor nation of some 16 million people, is polluted. The government has made attempts to tackle the problem, such as banning single-use plastics this year, but the impact on the ground appears limited. Bagni's trash problem is particularly severe. The town has a spotty garbage collection service, but no rubbish bins or sewage system. People throw their dirty water in rubbish bins on the beach because they have nowhere else to put them. The town hall is designating rubbish collection points across town, which it hopes will discourage people from dumping on the beach.
Away from that, Libyans in the capital Tripoli have been caught up between fear and pandemic and skepticism, as more than 30,000 coronavirus cases have been confirmed in Libya and over 470 deaths among a population of less than 7 million. The National Climatic Data Head of Communication has organized education campaigns in the capital, where its testing strategy also targets venues that are most exposed, like grocery stores, cafes and bakeries.
COVID-19 cases in Libya have risen more than 15-fold in less than 2 months, spiking from 571 in June to more than 9,000 according to Red Cross. More than 500,000 people need healthcare assistance as conflict, COVID-19 and economic collapse threaten to plunge hundreds of thousands of civilians deeper into chaos.
This is the third and final day of the National Community Awareness Campaign launched by the National Center for Disease Control in coordination with municipality of Souk al-Juma as the first step in order to launch in other municipalities in Greater Tripoli. Of course, the campaign brings community awareness for citizens to live with the coronavirus, especially in the spread of the disease during the fourth stage, since the beginning from the first stage.
Recently, government forces have turned the tide and forced Haftar's retreat after Haftar's forces leaving behind dangerous munitions and bombs in their wake.
The usual greeting by hand has caused more widespread than before. Even though our customs and traditions is to directly reach out with your hands to greet before you think. With time, everyone has become afraid and are trying to avoid greetings by hand.
Many hospitals and clinics have been damaged in the fighting, while others were forced to shut their doors because they were close to the front lines. Other facilities are decaying from under-reinvestment.
The people are not interested in the issue of the coronavirus, and it does not scare them as a dangerous topic. They see it as a lie.
The economic impact of the conflicts and COVID-19 is also being felt. Most people surveyed by the ICRC said their livelihoods have suffered due to COVID-19. Libya was not one of the first countries in the world to take precautionary measures. By stopping universities, schools, kindergarten, nurseries and mosques, the procedure was 100% correct, and the people were responsive and interactive. And the ban took effect. Everyone was accepting the issue and afraid that it was actually big, as we had in other countries. Daily wage earners and migrants are the hardest hit as income opportunities have evaporated. Prices of staple foods have increased by about 20% on average, but doubled in some areas. There are no masks. The price of the face mask reached 2 Libyan dinars. Each family needs a daily average of 5 to 10 dinars to spend on face masks. When they enter a food store or market to buy vegetables, how can they support their home with so much expenses? As the pandemic drags on, Libyans' reluctance to upend their daily routines has become increasingly entrenched, in part due to wariness but also financial constraints. Hygiene protection does not come cheap in Tripoli. The prices of masks, disposable gloves and disinfectants have all surged.
With the pressure on the citizens with the lack of electricity and water, they come to public places to take a rest or fresh air. though I know the situation and I am one of the people who do not wear a face mask.
That's all we had on Africa Focus today, but keep the conversation going on our social media platforms, Switch TV Kenya at Joel Chacha M on Twitter, and as well on Facebook, Switch TV Kenya. My name is Joel Chacha, and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Until next time, do have yourself a great day.